through the valley of Hinnom. We're going to be past here in the city of David, and across the valley, as you can see, is the old Yemenite village. Bet Yonatan, Bet Advash, Bet Frumkin. The valley between us and the Yemenite village is called the King's Garden. Welcome to the heart of Jerusalem, which has been recognized at least by one country in the world as the capital, although for the Jewish people it has been our capital since King David decreed this city to be the capital city 3,000 years ago, and our connection of course dates back 3,800 years. My name is Daniel Luria, and I'm at the bottom of the city of David, the base of the city of David. Overlooking the top there we can see the corner of the old city itself. We're going to see views inside the old Yemenite village of everything. The base of the city of David, which is today over 75, 80 families living, Jewish families living in the original city of David. A very big archaeological centre, a tourist centre. And we're now walking into the old Yemenite village that I believe that some people called Silwan. But Yemenite Jews were first here in 1882, and we're walking into the old Yemenite village. We will see on this tour, we will see Bet Ovadia, we'll see Bet Frumkin, named for the man that helped the Yemenite Jews in the 1800s when they first came to Israel. We will pass by Bet Rachel, maybe go to the rooftop. We will see Bet Hadvash, the very first family, in fact a Yemenite family, the Tanami family, who live in a single unit home. Canadian Jews actually helped acquire that a number of years ago. They're very special, the first foothold inside the old Yemenite village. Bet Rachel, Bet Hadvash, the old Beit Knesset, which is an amazing story of revival and redemption of an old Jewish synagogue. And Bet Yonatan. Today, 20 families live in this old Yemenite village in the heart of Shiloach, or also known as Silwan. In Hebrew, Kfar Hashiloach. So on this Chanukah, the Festival of Lights, which is also the festival of the reclamation of Jerusalem, how appropriate that we are touring on the festival that remembers the rededication of Jerusalem. We are rededicating Jerusalem today. We may be fighting the Seventh Day War, but our families and students and children living in the old Yemenite village, living on the Mount of Olives, living in the old city, living in the Holy Basin, are the pioneers, the Maccabees of today, who are revitalizing Jewish life here in the heart of Jerusalem. So this is the tour of Kfar Hashiloach. Welcome. The very first building we see at the end of this road is called Bet Ovadia. There are 4 Jewish families who live in this building today. Today, as a result of the number of Jews living here close to the city of David, Jews are also starting to walk into the neighborhood. Bet Ovadia, the massive building straight in front of us, this beautiful building, this has been redone. Ovadia, named for Ovadia Bar Tanura, who was buried in Har HaZeitim, very close to where we are at the moment. Unfortunately, in the last week or two, we're seeing an upturn of attacks following the Trump declaration about Jerusalem. We've seen a number of firebombs and Molotov cocktails and stones thrown at the building. Hello?
Hello.
There's Daniel Luria, Materet Kohanim. Well, we're inside Bet Ovadia now, 4 Jewish families, and who would have believed that here in the middle of what some people call Silwan, yes, there are Jews living here today. It may not be loved by all the neighbours here, but we have people that are lighting Hanukkah candles very shortly. They'll be lighting the second night of Hanukkah. In fact, the family that lives here is the Shemen family, who can trace his lineage back to the very, very first Yemenite Jew. He made Aliyah, Yemenite family, and he can trace his lineage back to the very first Yemenite Jews that came in 1882. It's a phenomenal story from the El Nakash and Nadaf families. As you can see from already on the stonework, there has been some Molotov cocktails thrown here recently. You can see part of the awning has been burnt. The stones have been charred as a result. Unfortunately, one of the cocktails ended up being thrown and made it through to the stairwell And on the side here, you can actually see where a Molotov cocktail fell. So we're trying now to do, we have to make a pergola, or a special steel mesh above the stairwell. The rooftop, for those who don't know, Jewish kids don't yet play in the streets, not in this part of town. So what we do is we find people who will help us to build a playground on a rooftop. So we made this special bridge over to the rooftop. We had to put down specially treated wooden pergola. Unfortunately, the Arabs are throwing stones, and every few weeks we're seeing our roof tiles that are being smashed. We have to put special steel mesh on top of our heaters and solar panels because of the Arab violence. The world has to understand this. The world has to understand about Arab aggression, incitement. Not all Arabs, of course. But we're dealing with too many Arabs here in Jerusalem who are full of hate, who are full of aggression, totally intolerant. The same type of things we're seeing throughout the whole of the Middle East today, and even Europe. Muslim fundamentalists. And unfortunately, it ends up being that our families are the ones at the other end of some of this aggression. As I pointed out, the black and the charred tiles, something that... You can see from where we are, we're on the rooftop of Bet Ovadia, overlooking the city of David, the south wall of the Temple Mount. You can see the visitor centre of the city of David today. It's 50% Jewish, 50% Arab in the original city of David. And we're overlooking the valley and the city and the Temple Mount, something rather unique from the rooftop of Bet Ovadia. People may be wondering, where do they park their cars? Well, first of all, most of the families who live here don't have cars, but those few who do, they park near the city of David, and they either walk in with security escorts, or they take a bulletproof jeep to get them into the village. Not your normal living, given that this is the heart of Jerusalem. But that's our reality in this part of Jerusalem if we're trying to hold on to the city. It requires enormous amount of devotion, self-sacrifice. In Hebrew, that's referred to as Mesirut Nefesh. Second to none, what we're seeing here by the families in the old Yemenite village. And for those people that do park sometimes, I think in the last 12 months we've had 6 cars firebombed. Now it's true, of course, that the government or a certain department looks after damage for things done because of terrorist activities, but it takes months for the money to come in. They don't usually give all the money. It's 3/4 sometimes, or 90%. So it's not so straightforward and easy for the families that have just had their car firebombed. In fact, there was one family whose car was firebombed twice. But you can do 2 things when that happens. You can pack your bags and leave, or you say, no, this city, this country belongs to us. We have rights. We are the indigenous people here. Main point in common between Yerushalayim and Hebron is our roots. When one talks about roots, heritage and history, it's here, it's Hebron. Whether it be 3,800 years or 3,000 years, that's deep. Because if one looks at history and the reality, there's never been a so-called Palestinian people or state or capital here. It doesn't mean that no Arabs and Bedouins or people haven't lived in this region. Of course they have, under various conquerors. But we're talking about who are the indigenous people here, who are the people with a connection to Jerusalem, to Hebron, to Beit El, to Shiloh. That's the Jewish people. Let's keep on walking. one thinks deep enough, and if you close your eyes for a second, you can even start to imagine those first Yemenite Jews who were coming here on a promise, who believed the Mashiach was coming in 1882, because it says in Shir Hashirim, even though I will be cut and hurt climbing a date tree, I'll ultimately reach those dates. So, for the Jews of Yemen who believed in the redemption and the Messiah, everything unfolded here in Jerusalem. They came, they trekked. Initially there were 2 families, then 15 families, and eventually at its peak 144 Yemenite Jewish families living right here, overlooking the Temple Mount, the city of David, the King's Garden. What more could they want? Initially they weren't necessarily understood or loved, but one thing is for certain, there was no Arab village here in 1882. There was no Silwan. There were some Arab families living in the northern sector, but most of this land was empty. And in fact, the land was owned by Jews. Later, Israel Dofrumkin helped the Yemenite Jews establish the neighborhood, and it became a major, major success story. We're now going to go to Bet Frumkin. Israel Dofrumkin, as I just mentioned, was one of the people, Ashkenazi, not Yemenite, who helped the Yemenite Jews establish the neighborhood. In his memory and in his honor, we've named one of the buildings we're about to go to Bet Frumkin.
שלום, מה נשמע? בסדר.
טוב לשמוע. Come, join us in Bet Frumkin and the Country Club. Next time you visit Shiloach, you know where you're going to have to come. Oh, אני רואה חנוכיות כאן. No, I was telling you, these are the Maccabees of today. You even got a few twins here. שלום לכם.
שלום,
נו, מוכנים? אתם המקימים של ימינו.
אנחנו מכבים.
These are the Maccabees. Very good. Oh, you see, when you come to Kfar Hashiloach, you'll get some Yemenite biscuits. Not really Yemenite, but doesn't matter. This is
אני לא מבינה.
Welcome to the Country Club of the Yemenite village. It's the only one of the buildings here that has a backyard. So because we had some very generous donors from America and from Australia, we managed to build an amazing mini country club where the kids can come, they can play. The whole area looked like that, which was under the stairs. We flattened it out, we cleaned everything out. The kids have got some chickens to play with. They've got a trampoline. They've got swings, they've got an area for the older kids to play upstairs there. And very shortly, we're going to be actually lighting a Hanukkah, a menorah, a Chanukiah, up here on the rooftop, the top of Bet Frumkin. Take a look at this. Something we're trying to grapple with is the overall security situation. But the bottom line is we have Jews who are ready and willing to be pioneers at the forefront. We have Jews that have the understanding, the ideology, the conviction to be able to live in situations that are not 100% sympathetic. Unfortunately today, as opposed to 50 years ago, 30 years ago, the concept of hatred and violence and aggression spreads like this: Facebook, Instagram, internet. The message of hate and intolerance and violence spreads very quickly through the world, and especially through a sometimes intolerant Muslim fundamentalist world. And the results of that are seen by our families here. In the last week, since President Trump made the very special and unique declaration about Jerusalem, in many ways it reminds me actually of King Cyrus or King Darius, the great Persian king of 2,600 years ago, who declared that Jerusalem has to be rebuilt. In fact, it was King Darius who said, he called on the Jews from around the world to help the diligent builders of Jerusalem. And those Jews who didn't help those diligent builders of Jerusalem, may his house become refuse. May he be strung by a beam to his house. That's not me talking. That's King Darius, the king of the greatest empire 2,600 years ago, making that statement. The Jews could go back. Yes, that's what Cyrus said. That's what King Darius also said. But he wanted the people of the world to help the diligent builders of Jerusalem. And that's in many ways what we're calling today for the people of the world that understand that Jerusalem has to stay in Jewish hands, that we are the rightful heirs, that we are the indigenous people here, that today the responsibility is not just on the families who are living here, but on the world at large to help the families who are living here. And that help can come in many shapes and forms. It could be maybe by prayers. It could be by support in the political field. It could be by helping to build a rooftop playground. It could be by maybe putting security cameras. It could be by renovating a place, or even restoring an old synagogue. There are many, many different ways to be able to help. The idea, though, is to understand that if Jerusalem is going to be ours and stay in Jewish hands, then it can only be done by something practical, by something real. As we would say in Jewish terms, tachlis, something very, very real. The Maccabees were real. They were tachlis. They weren't just sitting back and praying, although that they also did. They took the bull by the horns, and against the odds, they defeated one of the greatest empires here, the Greek Empire here in Jerusalem and in Israel at large. I'm not saying we're up against the same type of empires, but we're up against the UNESCO. We're up against the United Nations, up against nations that don't even understand our connection to the Jewish homeland. We're up against many things, including Arab violence and hatred and aggression, and lots of Arab money trying to divide the city. Well, we've just come into what I would call the heart of the Yemenite village. This is the story. This is the old Yemenite synagogue, Beit Knesset, that only recently has returned to Jewish hands, and the story behind this is phenomenal. Adjacent to the Beit Knesset is a single family, also Yemenite happens to be, the Tanami family, the very first family to move in here, and I don't believe there is a family. Oh, shalom lachem. Ma nishma? A Yemenite dog. Rega, keleb Temani? I think it's a Yemenite dog. Shalom lachem. Chanukah sameach lecha. הוא לא עונה לי. Chanukah sameach. This is the Tanami family and some of their friends playing in Bet Advash, the honey house, the very first family to move into the area. Shira, Tanami, Shalom Shira. I can see there's another Maccabee on the way.
On the way, yes.
Another Maccabee on the way. Anyway, B'Shah Tova. Look at it in the video. חתונה, זה בסדר. מה חדש? As you can see also from here, we've had a few Molotov cocktails and stones. So we'll go to the top and have a look at the attacks from the other side. Maybe we'll go to the top and see the attacks better. As you can see, we're going to the rooftop of the honey house, and then I'll take all of you into the old synagogue. But you can see here, just look, the attack of stones, the barrage of stones on both Bet HaDvash and also the synagogue is unparalleled. יפה. נכון. נכון, כבר לקץ על זה. האמת היא, אמרתי כבר מזמן, אני צריך לבקש מהסף לעשות את זה. הוא לא בטוח, באמצע הוא שוקע. בגלל שלא רצו לשים עמוד באמצע המקום הזה, את רואה שם את כל הפרגולה? הוא שוקע באמצע, לא מספיק בטוח שם. המעבר צריך להיות שתי מקומות שצריך להיות עמוד, אין מה לעשות. או זה, משהו מתחיל. Jewish life. Jewish life. Who would have thought? Who would have thought 10, 15 years ago, in the middle of Silwan, the old Yemenite village, that there was going to be Jewish life here? And there is. A Jewish girl walking around an old Yemenite village is the revival of life, is the sign that it could all happen. This is the main story of the Yemenite village. The main story of the Yemenite village all starts from here. A few years ago, we found out that the original Yemenite synagogue existed. Now, we know that the Arabs destroyed much of what it once was here in the peak when the Yemenite Jews were living here from 1882 to 1938. We're now inside the heart of the old Yemenite village. We've come into a building that is today the original Beit Knesset synagogue of the Yemenite period. But to understand how special this is, I have to take you back to 1882. Yemenite Jews first came, established the first buildings in the area. You can see this is the Beit Knesset, the 3 domes. Nothing else was here. This was empty land owned by Jews, and eventually Yemenite Jews lived here. It was a thriving Yemenite centre. Kids came to visit here from schools. There were Yemenite workers, craftsmen, there was a medical centre, kindergartens, 144 Yemenite families. And of course, what would the Yemenite village be without the Mori, without the teacher learning Torah and teaching the children itself? Unfortunately, everything was destroyed in the pogroms of 1928-29 and 36-37. We know that the Arabs not just destroyed things, they actually pulled apart buildings. Not only that, but there was a letter written about all the Sifrei Torah, the Torah scrolls, and the holy books that were ripped, torn, burnt, turned into a toilet, and complaints were written to the British High Commissioner. In fact, the British were the ones who said in 1938, because they took out the last 35 families that were here that remained after the pogroms. And there's a British promise written from the High Commissioner that the Jewish refugees will be able to return to their homes. A British promise who recognised that this was not Silwan, that this was an old Yemenite village, and that the Jewish refugees could return. But that promise became nothing. The city, the area, the neighbourhood was decimated. The houses were destroyed, the synagogue was destroyed, and all that remained was pictures of the Yemenite boys with their mori inside the original synagogue. Ateret Kohanim found out where this old synagogue was. Now, a lot of it couldn't be seen because illegal Arab building all around. Arrangements, deals were made with some of the Arab families, but some of the Arab families living in the original synagogue refused to leave, refused to take money. It went to the courts, and it was in court for 7-8 years until the Supreme Court of Israel ruled that it was a synagogue, that this was the original Yemenite Hekdesh, which is sanctified property, and the Arabs had to leave. But of course, they didn't think that they should leave. They tore up the eviction notices. Eventually, about 10 months ago, the police decided to fulfill one of the court orders, and the synagogue is back in Jewish hands. Of course, it needs a massive restoration job. We need Jews from around the world who want to restore an old synagogue here. In the meantime, we've taken one room, a very special room, but one room of the original synagogue complex, and using it as a synagogue. In fact, that room is the same room that the boys used to study. As you can see in the background here, there are 2 arches. There's a window on that side and 2 arches. About a year ago, we found that room. We came into this building, we went through this opening. Of course, it didn't look like this, because there was a door, there were stairs, there was walls. You couldn't see anything. And suddenly we discovered under a ceiling, under a fake ceiling, the original dome. And we found the 2 arches. One arch has been turned into an Aron Kodesh, and here's the other arch. So exactly 80 years ago, more or less to the day, there was a Yemenite teacher standing where I am and teaching the Yemenite Jews, little boys, in the Cheder, one of the rooms of part of the synagogue. Today, I'm standing here, part of a Tel Kohanim, knowing that families are back in the neighborhood, that this one little room is used as a temporary synagogue until we restore the whole building. It's a major job, it's a big job of $3 to $4 million to restore it to its previous glory. It has to be restored, not just knocked down. The government will help because it's a heritage site, but we need Jews around the world who understand the importance of bringing Jewish life back to be a Maccabean today. Whether it be to this synagogue, whether it be renovating to add a Jewish family, whether it be to fix up the rooftop and to make a playground, whether it be to make safety nets and special pergolas to protect the families, something to be part of this Seventh-day War and struggle of keeping Jerusalem in Jewish hands. The last stop on the tour, we're going to Bet Rachel. Of course, there's also Bet Yonatan, which I'm not sure we can manage in this particular tour. Bet Yonatan is also one of the original buildings we moved into in 2004. 8 families in a kollel. Bet Yonatan named for Jonathan Pollard. May we see him one day here in Jerusalem. A very unique building, one of the first buildings. But today, of course, we have 5 buildings. Bet Yonatan down the road, the synagogue, the Beit Knesset, Bet Hadvash, Bet Frumkin, and now we're going to Bet Rachel and be involved maybe with some Hanukkah candle lightings to remind us and the world that who brings light to the world. The Maccabees brought light to Jerusalem, and today we're bringing our own type of light back to Jerusalem. Follow me. We're just about to do some Hanukkah candle lightings in Bet Rachel, one of the 5 buildings in our hands today. You can see the huge Magen David and the menorah, which is on the rooftop of the synagogue, the old Yemenite Beit Knesset that needs to be restored. I'm on the main road, Bet Yonatan in the background, one of the first buildings that we moved into in 2004. That special 7-story building with 8 Jewish families and a kollel, boys learning Torah every day in the heart of the old Yemenite village, named for Jonathan Pollard, who, God willing, will be one day here in not just Jerusalem, but even specifically here in the house named and dedicated for him, for Jonathan Pollard. But let's make our way back now to Bet Rachel, the last stop on this very unique, I hope you also understand that, tour of the old Yemenite village of Shiloach, in Hebrew known as Kfar Hashiloach or Kfar Hashiloach. But on the way back, you'll see in the background the walls of the old city. Try and imagine the Yemenite Jews who saw this 130 years ago, the walls of the old city, the Temple Mount. We're seeing it today, maybe a little bit more complex, but we're seeing those same beautiful walls today, just like the Hashmonaim fought for and rebuilt. We today are doing the same thing with the revival of Jewish life, our shield of Jerusalem. A shield of Jewish life fighting, as I've said many times before, the Seventh-day War here in the Holy Basin, which is the old city and the area around. Something very special, very unique, and I think in many ways this particular revival of Jewish life is a symbol of all of the Zionist dream or the redemption process unfolding. It's slow, it's sometimes difficult. Sometimes the messianic donkey takes a step backwards. But ultimately we are moving forward. We're seeing the city rebuilt, we're seeing Jerusalem rebuilt, and we're basically seeing something very special unfolding here for the Jewish people. Okay, last stop on the tour, Bet Rachel. We'll go to one of the families here, maybe just in time for Hanukkah candle lighting. Maybe on the rooftop. Kfar Hashiloach. Hekdesh ben Benistan. Shalom lachem. Welcome to the Rabinovich household. Why? עוד מעט אנחנו הולכים להדליק. Soon we're going to be lighting Hanukkah candles here. אנחנו מדליקים הנרות.
We've been living here in Kfar Hashiloach for 11.5 years. almost 10 of each. We've been here just for 9 families by ourselves in the middle of the Arab village Silwan in East Jerusalem, just by the city of David. Through these years we've been facing lots of terror attacks, and we still do. But what happened 2 years ago, and as you said, Mr. Ateret Kohanim has been working in those 10 years that we've been living here by ourselves, very, very roughly, quietly, to make this place a bigger neighborhood. About 2 years ago, Ateret Kohanim, suddenly there was a big blessing, just like in Hanukkah, in Jerusalem, and Ateret Kohanim started buying new houses here in Kfar Hashiloach, 3 of each, and from 9 families we've became 20 families, which we are here now. As you can see, our Chanukiot, we live here safely. The state of Israel takes full responsibility for us living here at the Yemenite village. It's not simple. We are facing lots of terror attacks. We're facing stones and cocktail molotov thrown on our houses, on the armed vehicle with which we're entering our houses. And through that, we believe that Yerushalayim is worth it. We are willing to pay the price of living in East Jerusalem with armed cars, with guards in each house watching over us. A bit of a complicated life, but beautiful life. Our children, as you can see, are happy children. They're a bit stubborn living in such a place, but we have beautiful, fulfilling life in such a place. We want all of you Jews all around the world to join us in the project of building Jerusalem, rebuilding Jerusalem. There was a big light that came to the land of Israel during the Hanukkah days. This light goes on to these days, to our days. Here at the Yemenite village, more and more houses in which Chanukiot are being lit every year gives us light and strength for the whole year. We need more neighbors. We need more Jewish neighborhoods in East Jerusalem. Jerusalem is ours, all of ours, watching us now. I want to thank you for watching us and invite you to come and be partners in this amazing, amazing doing of building Jerusalem again. Thank you.
What better way to finish off a special tour? What a better way to finish off a special video, to see a new menorah, the Magen David menorah on the rooftop of Bet Rachel, overlooking absolutely everything. We are on top of the world. I'm on top of Moshe's Lookout, a very special man in America, overlooking Mount Zion, the city of David, the Temple Mount, the whole of the old city, Ir David, the Yemenite village. 360 degrees of something very, very special, and of course, the menorah, the symbol of light, the symbol of victory, the symbol of the Jewish people returning to Jerusalem. It has been an interesting tour. I hope those of you who have come for a walk through the old Yemenite village in Shiloach have understood, have appreciated the dedication, the sacrifice of the original Yemenite Jews who came in 1882, and those who are living here today to try and keep Jerusalem in Jewish hands. It's not an easy struggle, but it's a struggle that at the end we will be victorious in, because you see, we are on what some people coin God's or Hashem's roadmap. There are many people that try to dictate to the Jewish people what should be the roadmap. The Assyrians tried it, the Persians, the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Crusaders, the Arabs, the Muslims, the Turks, the Ottomans, the Mamlukites, the British. Everyone had their own roadmap. Even today we have the Quartet, we have the United Nations, many people deciding what we should do with Jerusalem. But you see, the Jewish people have already decided, because God has given this land to the Jewish people, and Jerusalem is its capital city. And there's really nothing that the world can do about it, because we're on that special unfolding redemption process that we're seeing and that you saw today on this tour through the Shiloach. Thank you, and shalom from Jerusalem.
קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת אשר עשית את עבדך. קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת אשר עשית את עבדך. קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת אשר עשית את עבדך. קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת אשר עשית את עבדך. כי במקלי עברתי את הירדן, אתה הייתי לשני מחנות, הצילני נא, הצילני נא, הצילני נא. כי במקלי עברתי את הירדן, אתה הייתי לשני מחנות, הצילני נא, הצילני נא, הצילני נא. מכל החסדים ומכל האמת אשר עשית את עבדך. אני קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת אשר עשית את עבדך.